Hello out there, YouTube community. I'm Scott Garriott, doing another vinyl video, but it's actually kind of just an album video where I show off some vinyls that correspond with the albums that I'm talking about. And the concept for the video today is my favorite album of every year from 1965 to 2025.
Post-production note, I said 1965, I meant 1955. I make that mistake a few more times before I correct it and get my act together, so I'm just gonna dub audio over from now on to correct it.
I went to 1955 because that was the earliest year I actually had an album from. And some of the early years, and even some of the later years, I had to kind of pick whatever I had just because I didn't know a lot of music from that year or didn't have a lot of records from that year. And then there's some other years where there's like 30 albums that I love from that year, so I had to narrow it down to one. But nevertheless, that is the concept for the video. And I'm gonna get started with 1955. This is Yma Sumac with Voice of the Xtabay, Xtabay. I had to look up how to pronounce that. I would have said Xtabay or something, but I found this record at a store that was just giving away. It wasn't even a record store, just a random store that was giving away records or selling them for really cheap. And this one looked interesting, and it was still it was still sealed when I bought it. And then I took it home and listened to it and realized it contained the track from the Big Lebowski soundtrack. The name of that track is Atayapura, and if you've seen the Big Lebowski, it's the scene where he goes to Jackie Treehorn's house and there's like naked women jumping on trampolines and stuff. It's really high-pitched, kind of operatic, but kind of orchestrated operatic type music. That's really cool. I don't know if I had anything else from this year, but this is a genuinely good album that I'm glad to own. Next year, I actually haven't even listened to this one, but I just picked this one up at a thrift store for $1. I was like looking through some records and I was like, okay, Frank Sinatra for $1. It looked like it was in better shape when I bought it, but the lighting wasn't great. It's kind of scratched up, but it serves a purpose because now I have an album from 1956 in this video. Frank Sinatra, That Old Feeling. I listened to it for a bit. It's fine. It's good. 1957. Miles Davis, Round About Midnight. This is an original copy. Got it for cheaper than it would normally sell for, but unfortunately one of the tracks had a little scratch on it that causes a repeating light tick, which kind of bugs me, but the rest of the album sounds great. But it's an original, Columbia 6i. Great Miles Davis album there. 1958, we got Lee Morgan, The Cooker. This is not an original, otherwise this would be a very valuable record. It is the Tone Poet release that came out a few years ago. I bought this without hearing it just because it was a new, Tone Poet was like a new thing that was getting a lot of good press, and so I thought I'd buy it, check it out. Great sound quality, really good jazz album. I think it's the only thing I own from that year, so happy to pick that one. And then for 1959, I could have gone with the obvious Kind of Blue, which is obviously a classic. I have a original stereo press of that album. But just to be different, I'm going to go with Ornette Coleman, Shape of Jazz to Come. And I actually got into this album before I got into Kind of Blue, because I got into the crazier experimental jazz before I got into the more kind of well-played but relaxing type Kind of Blue style jazz. But this is an original stereo press by Atlantic. Interesting thing about this, it has the label switched. It has side A and side B as far as the label. Doesn't make it more valuable. I think it's was a common error, but it's interesting. This is the New Lost City Ramblers. This is volume 2, and they released volumes 1 through 5, and they released a couple of other albums as well. But this isn't even my favorite New Lost City Ramblers album of the 5. I think I like volume 4 the best, but they're all good. And I'm just a big fan of this band. They were a bluegrass band from the late 50s, early 60s. And one of the first bluegrass bands I really got into. And their records are all excellent, very authentic sounding, kind of Appalachian style folk and country music. 1961 had a lot of different options. I'm going this because I just think this is a cool record. This is Coltrane Jazz. It's got the Obi strip on there. It's not an original. It's like a early 70s press. But nice jazz album. This is before he got too crazy. It's still fairly accessible, but really nice sounding jazz stuff. And this is a great sounding pressing, and I always love the Obi strips on there as well. So a lot of other good albums from that year though that I could have picked. 1962, going with Charles Mingus, sticking with the jazz stuff. This is my favorite Charles Mingus album and one of my favorite jazz albums. It's called Oh Yeah. I especially love the first track on here, Hog Callin' Blues. Just a really exciting jazz track in that Charles Mingus kind of way. Feels very live, even though I don't, I'm pretty sure it's a studio recording, but a lot of hooting and hollering and just a nice mix of free jazz kind of sound with more accessible melodies and stuff like that. But yeah, love that album. 1963, this will not be the first by this artist, but this is Bob Dylan's The Freewheelin' Bob Dylan. This is original mono press with this hype sticker that's kind of rare. It's not on the shrink, because this is not in the shrink, but it just came right on the jacket there. But not all of the, they didn't all have that, but this is one of my favorite records I own, period. And not my favorite Dylan album, but probably the best of his early folk stuff. I have a soft spot for his debut as well, but this is probably objectively the best one. And then for 1964, I have got the Holy Modal Rounders. They were kind of this offbeat. I don't know if experimental is the right word. They did get a bit experimental later when they got psychedelic, but this is more of like a straightforward folk kind of country fiddle album, but with really interesting lyrics and interesting vocals, very like kind of high-pitched, whiny, weird vocals, and lyrics with like drug references and just kind of oddball stuff. Kind of ahead of its time, but also kind of old-timey at the same time. Nice, really fun album, Holy Modal Rounders. 1965, this is just one of my favorite albums of all time. This is Bob Dylan's Highway 61 Revisited. It was my favorite album of all time at one point, and still in my top 5. This is an original copy, or this might be a 67 copy, I don't know, but either way, vintage copy with the shrink and the hype sticker there. 1966, I'm going Bob Dylan again. Could have gone with Pet Sounds or Revolver. Those are even more obvious choices, but this is the third most obvious choice, Blonde on Blonde by Bob Dylan. I'm just a huge Dylan fan, obviously, but I think there's only going to be one or two more of his albums on here, so the list won't be littered with his stuff. But for me, the mid-60s were Dylan's time, especially with those 3 albums, Bringing It All Back Home, Highway 61 Revisited, and Blonde on Blonde. This is an original mono copy that I just got. Really nice shape. Hard to find these, especially in nice shape. It's got the Claudia cardinal and the inner gatefold, for those of you who know what that means. 1967, so many good ones I could have picked from this year. I realized I could actually do like a top 30 list, and I think I would have all the albums from this year, but 67 is just such an incredible year. Could have gone with The Velvet Underground and Nico. That's certainly one of my all-time favorite albums. But this one is even higher on my list. This is Songs of Leonard Cohen by Leonard Cohen. Perfect album. Like, it's got like 10 songs or something like that, and every single one is excellent. Obviously the lyrics are excellent, but also just like the mood and his vocals. It just puts me in this kind of meditative state that really, really does it for me. One of my, just maybe the best singer-songwriter album of all time. This is an original copy on Columbia with the 2i there, and it's got this little, I don't know if you call it an Obi strip, but little song thing that flips into the, tucks into the jacket there. I'll show you that closer. 1968, another really strong year, and this is, just to have a favorite album, this is what I call my favorite album of all time. This is The Hangman's Beautiful Daughter by the Incredible String Band. Just this otherworldly, indescribable folk album that I didn't even like the first time I listened to it, but over the years I've become kind of entranced by, and call it my favorite album of all time. Maybe just to be different, so I don't pick something too obvious, but either way, absolutely love this album. This is a original promo copy, which I had never seen before. One came up for sale on eBay, and I jumped on it. Not a white label, but it does say promotional copy on the label there. 1969. This may be the best year of all time for music, and there's so many I could have gone with. On my official list, this is not even my number 1, it's like my number 3, but today I'm going with this, The Gilded Palace of Sin by the Flying Burrito Brothers. This is my favorite country album of all time. Graham Parsons died too young, but just love his whole country thing he did, especially on this album, but his solo albums are also excellent. Great country album that mixes in little subtle influences, like a little bit of psychedelic touches here and there, a little bit of soul music influences, and just enough variety, but also like solidly country at the same time. 1970, moving on to a new decade. This is a top 5 album of all time for me. This is Funhouse by Iggy and the Stooges. Another one I didn't really get the first time I heard it, and then I listened to it a few years later and just became completely obsessed with it. This is one of the few albums that can really get me like genuinely amped up, like punching things and just going crazy. It riles something up in me that no other album can do. Indescribably visceral album. 1971, I haven't listened to this one in a while, but when I was younger, I would come home every day, smoke weed, and listen to this album. This is Tego Mego by Can, and this is an original German press. The first disc is just these really awesome krautrock instrumental stuff with this Japanese vocalist who sings these indecipherable lyrics. And then the second half is just like this wild, like darkly psychedelic ride that will not be for everybody, but I really like it. 1972, this is maybe the greatest rock and roll album of all time. Exile on Main Street, one of the great works of art of the 20th century, in my opinion. Yeah, the Rolling Stones are one of my favorite bands, maybe my favorite band, and this is definitely their best album. Yeah, it's not an album that I loved immediately. I don't think anyone really loves this immediately because there's not a lot of hits on it. And once you kind of get through it and assimilate it and get used to the sound, it becomes just such an addictive, resonant record. And it's definitely my favorite of the year, even though Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust is way up there as well, obviously also. All right, 1973, going with kind of an odd choice. This is Toots and the Maytals' Funky Kingston. This is the album that got me into reggae, and it's my favorite reggae album. This is the original. This is a Japanese press with the obi strip, which I always like from a collector's standpoint. But they released this in Jamaica, I believe, or UK or something like that, or maybe both, with a certain track list. And then they released it in the US a few years later with a different track list. It was like a combination of their first 2 albums. But they're both great albums, but this original with the original track listing is what I got into first. So that's my favorite album. And that one was released in 73, so that counts for that year. 74 got Neil Young's On the Beach, my favorite Neil Young album by a pretty big margin, and one of my favorite albums of all time. Just a great songs that aren't overplayed and a great vibe. Very mellow yet depressing at the same time. It really like blends that together really well. Kind of sounds like the album cover, kind of a melancholy, but kind of golden yellow at the same time, if that makes sense. Brian Eno, Another Green World, is my pick for 1975. Love all these Brian Eno albums, especially when he was still doing vocals on his albums. This is like a mix of his vocal stuff with just pure ambient stuff. But it really does create a world visually through the sonic palettes of this album. And I don't think 75 is the strongest year. There's a few I like, but compared to some of the previous years I've been talking about here, this was a little weaker. But we do have this and Blood on the Tracks and Patti Smith Horses. They're all up there, but this is my pick for 75. 1976, another one of my all-time favorites. This is the Ramones' debut album, Ramones. This one, first time I listened to it, I didn't really know what to think. I thought it was kind of weird sounding. But after a handful of listens, like all of a sudden, it just grabbed me so when it hit me, it just hit me so hard. The mix of like artistic minimalism with just pure simplistic rock and roll is genius in its own weird way, but it's kind of hard to put that into words or describe to people who don't get that. But either way, very influential record. The first four are all excellent, but this is probably my favorite still. 1977, another excellent year. Could have picked so many different ones, but I am going with another reggae album, Heart of the Congos. Actually, this is my favorite reggae album. I'll go with Funky Kingston #2, but this is definitely my favorite. Just great tracks with amazing production. If you are into reggae at all, you gotta check this out if you haven't heard it. I know it's not one of the more well-known reggae albums, but it's fantastic. Going with a weird one for 78, this is Jandek's Ready for the House. He was an outsider musician who self-released albums, and his music's very atonal, definitely avant-garde, spooky, kind of sounds like just a guy alone in his empty basement. If you're into that kind of vibe though, like I am, definitely check this out. I've gone through phases where all I wanted to listen to was Jandek, and then I go through phases where I don't want to listen to him at all. But definitely not something I can guarantee anyone would like, but definitely an interesting figure regardless. 1979, this is a really close call between this and London Calling by The Clash, but I'm going with Tusk by Fleetwood Mac. I prefer this album to Rumours, maybe because Rumours, is kind of overplayed, and heard all those tracks. I haven't really heard these tracks, and they were all kind of fresh to me. The only one I'd heard was the title track Tusk, which is definitely the weirdest thing I've heard Fleetwood Mac do. The rest of the album's not as weird, but it's just very diverse and a little bit more raw than Rumours, but still got the strong melodies and the really nice harmonies and all that. But a mix of, they mix in a little bit edgier stuff too. But yeah, I love Tusk. Great album. Then I am going to go with The Clash for 1980, another offbeat choice that isn't everyone's cup of tea, but I love this album. Sandinista by The Clash for 1980. Really close with Remain in Light by Talking Heads. They're both like neck and neck among my favorite albums. This is one, though, you kind of have to take the time with it. I had a job where I basically just got to sit and listen to records most of the day, and so for like a couple months, I would just put on this album. I'd throw on different sides, because it's a triple album, and so I just pick a side and play it, and just totally fell in love with this album over the course of those months I was listening to it. And sometimes you want an album to be tight and compact, but sometimes the more the better. And if you take the time with this one, I think it is a more is more album, even though most people feel the opposite. All right, 1981 is a year I have heard almost nothing from. Like, this is a year that I had to really struggle to pick something. I'm going with an album I have not listened to much, but I just bought this, so as far as like exciting records in my collection, this is my favorite. Psychedelic Jungle by The Cramps. Definitely a good album that I need to listen to more, but I didn't know what else to pick. There was Tattoo You, I think, by the Rolling Stones, but that's not even close to one of my favorite Stones albums. Could have thrown another like Jandek album in there, but I really don't know much from this year. But this is my pick. The Cramps, Psychedelic Jungle. This is I think a second year press or something like that, but excited to own that one. 1982, Kate Bush, The Dreaming. This is my favorite Kate Bush album. Obviously, Hounds of Love is also excellent, but this one's a bit stranger, a bit more visceral, and just a bit more my vibe, my style. But yeah, excellent album, The Dreaming by Kate Bush. Another outsider album for 1983. This is Hi, How Are You by Daniel Johnston. Really love this, the DIY vulnerability, and just a big fan of outsider music in general. People just making music for the sake of it. Not necessarily the strongest technical musicians, but really expressing themselves in interesting ways. I just love that like lo-fi tape sound as well. It makes for a really interesting, engaging listening experience. '84, another one of my favorite albums, The Meat Puppets 2. So many great songs on this one. And obviously Nirvana covered 3 of the best ones on there, but there's a lot of other good ones too. Nice fuse of kind of country rock with punk music. Just a great album. '85 was an easy choice. This is my favorite album of the 1980s. This is Rain Dogs by Tom Waits. And this is to me, this is the most obvious best album of the decade of any album. Like, for the 60s and 70s and 90s, I could go with a few, but for the 80s, it's Tom Waits' Rain Dogs is the best album of the 80s for me. No question. '86 is another year where there's not much I like, but I do like this album, The Queen is Dead by the Smiths. Got a couple real classics on there, just a good album overall. '87, another year, almost nothing from this year that I listened to. It's not that it's a bad year, I just don't know much from it. But I did pick this album up recently, Sonic Youth's Sister. I need to give it some more listens, but definitely my favorite record I own from this year, even if I haven't listened to it enough. '88, first hip-hop album on here. This is Public Enemy, Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. Just really excellent, visceral, exciting music that takes, the production takes a little bit of getting used to, because 80s hip-hop just sounds different than modern hip-hop, or even 90s hip-hop. But once you get used to it, the sound, it's really good. Another hip-hop album. This is actually the album that got me into rap. This is Paul's Boutique by the Beastie Boys. So many amazing samples on here before the laws of sampling, became a lot stricter. But just a really fun, really densely layered album. Probably still my favorite rap album. All right, we're moving into the 1990s now. Bit of a strange one for 1990. This is Sun City Girls, Torch of the Mystics. Sun City Girls are an experimental band from Arizona, and I haven't listened to all their stuff. They got a lot of albums, but this album is fantastic. A nice mix of different styles, but all done in kind of this lo-fi desert rock kind of experimental way that really appeals to me. We got 91 going with another hip-hop album, Low End Theory by Tribe Called Quest. Great jazzy production, very easy to get into kind of stuff, but quality music as well. For 92, I could have gone with a few different ones. My favorite is probably Bone Machine by Tom Waits, as far as like a full album, but I decided to go with Sleep's Holy Mountain, just to add a new genre into the mix here. This is a stoner metal album, and the track Dragonaut on here was the first metal song I really ever got into, because I thought I hated metal, and then I heard that track and I realized I don't hate it. I've always liked metal adjacent stuff like Black Sabbath, but this is like the first fully metal type thing that I got into. For 93, we're going with Liz Phair's Exile in Guyville. This is an interesting album, great album with a lot of great songs, but she modeled it after Exile on Main Street, which I talked about earlier. So there's 2 discs on here and the same amount of sides, same amount of tracks on every side as Exile on Main Street, same amount of total tracks. And it's not like a one-to-one comparison, but there are similarities between the tracks if you look at the track listing. And some people say it's like a female response to Exile on Main Street, which I don't think it's that exactly, but just an interesting framing device for an album that I really enjoy, but also just really love the tracks on here. 94, so many great albums from this year. I could do a whole like top 10, top 20 list of albums I like, but going with Beck's One Foot in the Grave. This is a very influential album to me as a musician, just because like the mix of traditional folk music with more kind of abstract postmodern lyricism was something I really embraced and tried to emulate in my own music. But I just love this. Produced by Calvin Johnson, got a great lo-fi sound that he never really went back to in his later stuff. Mellow Gold's also excellent, another Beck album from that year. And Stereopathetic Soul Manure I like as well. 95, going with Pavement, Wowie Zowie. This is my favorite Pavement album. They were a slacker rock band, and this is the most slackery rocky album of theirs. Not the first album to start with if you're trying to get into Pavement. I would start with maybe Crooked Rain or Brighten the Corners or Slanted Enchanted, something like that. But after listening to Pavement for a long time, this is the one that I return to the most. 96, going with the Brian Jonestown Massacre, Thank God for Mental Illness. And this was the year of the Brian Jonestown Massacre for me. I'm a big fan of them. I could have picked also their Satanic Majesty's Second Request or Take It From the Man. Those are both excellent albums as well. But this was the first one I heard by them, and it got me into the band. Supposedly he made this album for like $17 or something like that. But great lo-fi interpolation of 60s music. 97, this is my favorite album of the 90s, The Mollusk by Ween. Big Ween fan, and this is their masterpiece in my opinion. Great mix of genres I'm not really that into usually. Like, it's got some progressive rock in there, sea shanties, a bit of electronica. Great mix of their funny stuff with some more serious stuff. Just great songs all the way through, and no song sounds the same. 98, this is a bit cliche, but I do love this album, In the Airplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel. Yeah, I just think this is great. I just think this is a great album. I heard it playing in a record store recently, and I was like, I wonder if I'll still like this album, because it had been a while since I heard it. But yeah, like every track is great. It sounds even better than I remember. Yeah, it's a classic. All right, for 1999, going with 69 Love Songs by the Magnetic Fields. And that is not just a crude joke of a title. There actually are 69 songs in here, and most of them are really good, and a lot of them are excellent. Yeah, endless material, endless excellent songs to listen to on that one. Another case of more is more, like with Sandinista. Electric Wizard, Dope Throne gets my pick for 2000. Could have gone with Kid A by Radiohead. It's a shame Radiohead didn't make it, because Kid A and OK Computer are among my favorite albums, but I wanted to go with this one just because it's another metal album that I got into, kind of like that Sleep album, but this one takes that sound and expands on it. It's even more fuzzed out, even more distorted, and this is exactly how I want metal to sound. I just love the sound of this album. Then for 2001, we got Is This It by The Strokes. This is an album I actually like more now than at the time it came out. At first I wasn't really sure what I thought of it, and now I think it's a classic. Now I think that every track is great. I almost like it more as a pop album than a rock album. It's just those melodies really get to me. Just great, kind of a great power pop album in a way, even though it's known as a rock album. And here's a band I'm not really that into anymore, but I do like this debut album, The Big Come Up by the Black Keys. This is my pick for 2002. Don't really like their more produced stuff ever since El Camino, just not a big fan, but their early raw, garagey, blues type stuff I do still really like. All right, 2003, we got Elephant by the White Stripes. This is one of the first records I ever bought, and it's the original press of this album. I don't know if this is my favorite White Stripes album, but it is my favorite 2003 album, from what I could figure. 2004, I got Coco Rosie with La Maison de Mon Rêve. I really like the mix of kind of DIY aesthetic with a lot of weird little kids' toys, sounds and stuff like that, with this kind of satirical blues songs with a lo-fi aesthetic. Yeah, I just really like this album. Not one that normally gets picked as the best album of this particular decade, but it's one of my favorites. This one's, I don't know if this is an obscure album or not, but I don't hear it mentioned very much. Pavo Harju, I don't really know how to pronounce the name. It starts with a Y. Yahama something, but really great atmospheric, kind of almost ambient stuff mixed with some beat elements to it, and really nice vocals as well. But yeah, it's a really great experimental album that I really like. That was 2005. 2006, here's another Bob Dylan sneaking into it. This is a later period Bob Dylan album called Modern Times that I really enjoy. And I remember when this first came out, this was the first Dylan album I got into, like, when it came out. And just a lot of great tracks on here. If you can handle his latter-day voice, yeah, definitely check this out. 2007, Animal Collective with Strawberry Jam. I wasn't into Animal Collective at first, and I lived in a house where everyone was obsessed with them, so they kind of got me into them over time, and this is my favorite album by them. Forever and Green has some of the best screaming I've ever heard in a song, and every track on here is excellent. All right, this is Jus Keskitayo. He's a Swedish or Norwegian? Oh, no, sorry, a Finnish. One of the Scandinavian countries. He's a Finnish folk artist, and it's a folk album, but it's very diverse and varied, and nice lo-fi production that goes well with his Finnish vocals. I don't know how to describe it. I just really like this album, and it was a hard album to get because they only made it in Finland, and had to order it from Finland. It didn't even pop up very often on Discogs. I had to wait like years for that one to pop up. And then for 2009, we're going with an ambient album. This is Rice Boy Sleeps by Jonesy and Alex. These were the guys from, what's the name of that band? Sigur Rós, yeah. These are the guys from Sigur Rós. I like this more than Sigur Rós, though. It's more subtle, understated ambient stuff rather than the kind of grandiose stuff of Sigur Rós. But yeah, if you like ambient music, this is a really, really good one. 2010, we got MGMT's Congratulations. This is my favorite MGMT album. It just really works great as an album, and it has a lot of great individual songs in its own right. Flash Delirium and Brian Eno. And, yeah, what's the other one? Yeah. Song for Dean Treaky. Stuff like that. Great album. This is Andrew Jackson Jihad, or what they're known now as AJJ with Knife Man. I got into this band before they actually became famous because a friend of mine knew them down in Southern California where he lived and got some of their demo tapes. So I got really into some of the really early stuff. Then they blew up, which was cool. But this is my favorite of the stuff after they blew up. Probably my favorite album of theirs. All right, I got another Brian Jonestown Massacre album for 2012. This is Aufheben, AUFHEBN, however you spell that, pronounce that. Kind of a great mix of, has kind of like an almost Egyptian or Middle Eastern sound to me, but just a really compelling album with a lot of great sounds and songs on it. 2013 got Foxygen. We are the 21st century ambassadors of peace and magic. The first side of this album is perfection, just like every song is amazing. It's a great throwback to 60s music, and but a lot of different styles within that as well. But yeah, you have a lot of great classic songs in here, like No Destruction in San Francisco, and then side 2 is great as well. I just don't listen to it quite as much, but yeah, love this album. All right, for 2014, I got Ariel Pink, Pom Pom. Ariel Pink is unfortunately not thought of as well as he used to be for various reasons, but I still like this album quite a bit. Very diverse, very creative album. And I met him and I got this album signed by him as well as Don Bowles, who signed it Don cleverly on there. But yeah, I still like this album. I also like Dedicated to Bobby Jameson quite a bit. For 2015, going with Joanna Newsom, Divers. This is my favorite Joanna Newsom album. I think it blends her more kind of quirky song-oriented style of her first album with the more epic kind of epic in scope stuff of her second and third album. But yeah, it's not a popular pick, but this is my favorite of hers. 2016, going with David Bowie's Black Star. I actually didn't listen to much from this year when 2016 was going on. I was actually mostly listening to local stuff and albums that my friends made. I was in kind of like a more outsider kind of like local type vibe at the time. But so I don't really know a lot of albums from 2016 that are well-known, officially released albums. But David Bowie's last album, and he knew he was dying when he made it. And some great songs in there, especially the title track. I should probably listen to it more. I actually shamefully don't listen to it that often, but it's, definitely a good pick for this year. This next one is my favorite of the decade. This is Alex Cameron with Forced Witness. Just a really great kind of 80s sounding pop album, but with these really sleazy lyrics. He's playing this kind of like washed up character with a lot of sleazy tendencies, but it really works well with the music. Kind of like the way, when you hear 80s music, it's kind of like the way you picture the characters to actually be rather than the way they present themselves. But yeah, great album with some amazing melodies and some really, really funny and interesting lyrics. For 2018, going with Jack White's Boarding House Reach. This is kind of a controversial album. A lot of people didn't like it very much. Some people loved it. I liked it quite a bit, and there just wasn't much else I was into this year as far as like a full album. It takes a lot for me to get into a full album sometimes. Like a few songs or whatever. But I just really respect the fact that he went in like a more experimental direction. I think it was a good career move. Saved him from being turning into like a rock dinosaur that releases the same predictable album all the time. But yeah, I like that one. And for 2019, this is, maybe the first like really popular pop album that I have on my list is Billie Eilish, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? I just think this is a really good album. I think it's a great album. I think every track is really good. Production's amazing. I like her vocals, and it's one I listen to quite a bit. All right, moving into our current decade with 2020. This is Dougie Poole, The Freelancer's Blues. This one's, I don't think, too well known, but I just really love this. It's more of a straightforward singer-songwriter country type album, but really clever and interesting lyrics, and just really great songs that get stuck in your head. And I highly recommend it. Should be more well known. 2021, Illuminati Hotties, Let Me Do One More. Great album. Some more kind of rock punk type stuff and some more ballads on here, but first half is especially like just banger track after banger track, and then towards the end I get a little less interested, but they're still really good songs even at the end. Pool Hopping, great track. The first 3 or 4, all awesome. Interesting color too on the record. You got blue and clear. And then 2022 was a kind of a bummer year for me. Like, I could not find anything interesting. This is Alex Cameron again with Oxy Music, and I like this album, but I feel weird picking it because it's like it's like my 3rd or 4th favorite album of Alex Cameron's, but it's the one I listened to the most that year. There's just not much. There's some good albums and probably some I would like a lot if I listened to them, but I just didn't listen that much, and the ones I did, I only got into a few tracks from. But it's a good album still. If you like Alex Cameron, it's a good one. 2023, this might be a bit of a surprise, but I just love this album. This is Olivia Rodrigo's Guts. Her first album I thought was decent, had a couple tracks I liked, but this album was a huge step up, and the whole thing is amazing. And there's more rock songs on this one. First one was a little too ballad heavy, I thought. This is a nice mix of rock music and ballads, and I think the production's a step up, lyrics are a step up, and even though I'm not like the target audience for this, I just really admire the creativity, and melodies and the lyrics are all really good, and it's the one I listened to the most from that year, even though there's a lot of other good ones. I thought 2023 was a really good year for music. 2024, this is easily my favorite of the decade, my favorite of the century, honestly. This is Diamond Jubilee by Cindy Lee. Triple album, indescribable type record. It's just, I don't know how it was made, but It's called hypnagogic pop, I guess, but it really just sounds like 1950s and 60s kind of ballads mixed with more modern, like lo-fi indie music, and it creates an experience unlike anything you've heard, but also very familiar and nostalgic at the same time. Yeah, incredible album, one of my top 20 of all time. Diamond Jubilee. And then for 2025, I really wasn't into music in 2025. I had a couple I kind of liked, but I didn't have a really strong favorite of the year until I heard this one. This is Infinity Knives and Brian Eno's with, what's his name of this album? Drowning in God's Black Tears or something? A City Drowned in God's Black Tears. This is a really interesting, really cool album. It's a mix of... I guess it's hip hop technically, but it's not. That really like undersells it by just calling it hip hop. It's like some experimental hip hop tracks, but then there'll be these folk songs that pop up sometimes. Then there's even like a doom metal track, or it's like a folk song that turns into a doom metal track. And there'll be interludes that are more like kind of like 1960s French sounding music. But there's also just a lot of really unapologetic political stuff on here, so if you don't agree with the politics, you might not like it. But other than that, I highly recommend this. It's one of the most unpredictable and free albums I've heard in a really long time, where they just kind of did whatever they want. They didn't care about the genre or the attitude. It was kind of whatever they felt like doing, and I always respond well to albums like that. So yeah, that's my favorite album of 2025. Thank you for watching. Hope you're having a good day. Talk to you next time.